Building Africa exhibition was based on a research project carried out by 5 researchers, myself, Julia Gallagher, and my colleagues Daniel Mulugeta, Joanne Tomkinson, Kuukuwa Manful, and Innocent Batsani-Ncube. And we carried out research across the continent looking at buildings, thinking about the politics behind them and in them, and in particular talking to citizens about the politics that they saw through these buildings. We found lots of different types of political building across the continent. So, for example, there are colonial buildings that are still being used. The Union buildings in South Africa, which remain the presidential headquarters. Or Osu Castle in Ghana, which is an old slave fort, but it's still in use as a government building. Then there are brand new iconic buildings like the Ghanaian presidential palace that looks like an Ashanti stool. And the Zimbabwean parliament, which is built on a hill outside Harare by the Chinese government, a brand new building. In South Africa, there's an apartheid-era prison that's been turned into the Constitutional Court. In Ghana, there are state schools, many of them, that have been built by local communities around the country. And there are buildings that span the continent, like the airports that link countries around the continent together physically. For example, the Bole Airport in Ethiopia. And then there are political buildings like the African Union building in Addis Abeba in Ethiopia, which links Africa politically. This film is about how we made the exhibition.
I've got it now, Kuukuwa. I'm doing it in single cut.
I think we wanted to make the findings accessible because we wanted, often academic research ends up in journals and books which most people won't read.
We wanted the first viewers and recipients of this work to be in the communities where we did the research, and that's why we chose to do it in Accra, in Johannesburg, and in Addis Abeba. We also wanted to work with designers from each of these countries to sort of look at what we as researchers had done and interpret them and display them to wider audiences. And to do this, it was important for these installations to happen in African countries.
As we're going through the material, we start to notice some figures appear. And what we started to pick up on were some of these archetypes, the doors, the amphitheater. Some of them were more obvious than others. The podium, as we know, is a figure that tends to appear in general within the South African historical record, political historical record, as the site of decision-making. It's the figure where perhaps the most important speeches about liberation have been made, but it's also sadly the figure of perhaps corrupt decisions. The books, as you see, they're kind of sat on the podium. They were sat as a lid. And when you would open that book, you would be then introduced into this world.
There's a lot of bricks that they kept from the old prison, and it has this very striking red. Same goes for the Union building, which is it's actually a stone that's local to the place and has this very recognizable red.
We made these models also to be touched. They leave their trace on your fingers, and then you leave your trace in the book.
It's a way as well to make people engage with the art piece, and also going away from hierarchy, right? And being able to engage with it. and creating their own narrative as well.
I think that implicitly encouraged people to finally kind of speak back.
Whenever you invite people for exhibition, they want something to see at face value. But here we just have the structure. So the exhibition was hidden here. And one person was saying the exhibition was in the air. So basically we have umbrella is a kind of a structure that exists in all over the world. But we tried to be inspired by this simple and beautiful shading tool that mostly Ago people use in Ethiopia and also in some northern part of the country. And at the same time, we want to use the potential the technology has so that the audience can have an interactive experience with the exhibition. So we basically try to gamify the experience. We have also combined 2D animation so that it increased the participatory aspect, the interactiveness aspect. So they will install the Building Africa exhibition app and just open the camera and scan the QR codes. With typical exhibitions is that they are, embedded into a single space or a museum or an exhibition space where people come, see, and go. But with this exhibition, I didn't want to implement this. I decided that the exhibition should move instead the people moving to the exhibition. This is about the people. This is about politics. So it really should be outside.
So the structure behind me is the Ghana setup for the Building Africa exhibition. We named it the Anansi Playhouse because we used a few elements from Anansi. In Ghana, Anansi being the spider. So it's part of Ghanaian folklore, where Anansi is sort of the mischievous character. Usually, in stories about Anansi is more like trying to deceive people and sort of manipulate them to do things his way. Usually, our opinions of politicians are filled with they giving promises and one way or the other not fulfilling them, or telling stories in a particular way which may not be the same perspective of the citizens. And so we thought Anansi would be the good character to portray this. Our task was to make a mobile exhibition, and we decided to go with the structure because it's something we could set up and demount in the center of Accra. Those are the frames that are made of wood. And then the internal material, we made use of fishing nets. The nets were good because it looks almost invisible. So it seems as if the webs are hanging on their own. We made the webs with a group of students from the Corpus Christi School. We got them involved as an art and crafts activity and did the weaving with them. Each web is a representation of what the student thinks a web looks like. Some look exactly like spider webs, others are very abstract, but then it's just how webs are, they are never the same. Our exhibition was mounted in Osu, one of the commercial hubs in Accra, Osu. So in Osu, we were able to use the car park of one of the supermarkets. We had all sorts of people coming in. We had kids come in to play around. We did have people who were tired and felt it was a good place to sit. We've had people sit there and eat and braid their hair. We also gave them little sticky notes to write their opinions of the exhibition, which we had a lot of comments.
One of the things that's very striking about it is the very different ways the exhibitions describe the openness of the state. With the South African one, there's much more of a stark contrast between the heavy authority of the official state and the sort of intimacy, almost vulnerability of the inside of the state. And I think that's made me think quite a bit about how difficult it is for South Africans to put the two together. If you look at the Ghana exhibition, the walls are very much, you can see through them, albeit that they're distorted by the spider webs. You can still have this sort of sense of being able to look in and look out and walk in and walk out. And in the case of the Ethiopian tiller, one of the things that's very striking about it is that the buildings are invisible, actually, in that exhibition. And I think that speaks to something about how difficult it is to look at state architecture in Ethiopia.
Africa,